So in the foreground of this image is my sledgehammer, which you can recognize if I move the camera a bit to give it a better perspectival view. And this is a 16-pound sledgehammer I purchased as a performance art dance tool. And I had to order it because a hammer this size is difficult to find in a hardware store. So I ordered it, and it came in. Ideally, I would have wanted a 14-pound sledgehammer because the hammers that Dennis Brutus and Nelson Mandela because the hammers that Dennis Brutus and Nelson Mandela used were forced to use to break rocks when they were interred on Robben Island were 14-pound hammers. And I wanted to make a reference to the use of those hammers. But I couldn't find a product, a sledgehammer that was 14 pounds. So I purchased the 16-pound sledgehammer, and I've used that in performance pieces, and I've also, recorded images of some of the results of that use, and I've recorded images of the hammer itself and the hammer in connection with other images. But the hammer image for me goes back to 1974 and a film. This is a film by, I believe his name is, the director's name is David Weiss, and there's music in the film. It's sung by Roberta Flack, who in this song narrates the story of John Henry. And it's quite a moving film, and the analogies that it clearly draws in this legend to the lives of individuals who were willing to sacrifice themselves for the idea of the civil rights movement is really quite clear, and it's quite moving. There's a moment in which I believe John Henry's wife is named Polly, or here she is, Polly or Pollyann, realizes that John Henry's commitment, he's not merely competing with this steel driving machine. He's not merely competing with technology. He's demonstrating the power of the human spirit and this ideal that he's a man. And when I viewed the film in 1974, I was a child. I was in the 4th grade. The connections and the parallelism with individuals who had sacrificed themselves for in the civil rights movement were clear to me. So this was an iconic image of representation, metaphor of the lives of individuals like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and others, who had died, in the service of this cause. And, and it's not just African Americans either. I mean, other freedom fighters, Native Americans have sacrificed their lives for these causes as well, and these ideals, of human freedom. And so none of this was lost on me. And like I said, there's this really moving moment when Polly takes her daughter in hand and walks away from the scene in which John Henry is struggling with the steel driving machine, because she realizes that he's going to die. So she can't bear to watch the death of John Henry, and she realizes that he'll sacrifice himself for this ideal. And to me, that was very moving. And he does defeat, of course, the machine, which even in this historical video, like, refers to the machine, as a machine, like a literal machine, which it is. And so this folktale is regarded as a story that decries the mechanization of our lives in modernity, and that this iconic figure is seen as representation of the human versus the machine. But of course, like, in this particular context, 1974, sung by Roberta Flack in this gospel style, like, how can you not connect it to the civil rights movement, right? Well, like I said, even in the presentation that this video is given on Contemporary YouTube channel, and all the historical credits are given, but it doesn't make the obvious connections, right, to this figure. And he's a sort of Spartacus, right, of the civil rights movement, in a sense, or Nat Turner, or all these individuals who were willing to sacrifice themselves for these causes. Nelson Mandela spent decades in jail. Dennis Brutus spent less time in jail, but ultimately died. There is perhaps contention about this too, but in my mind, ultimately died from the consequences of a life of resultant medical issues caused by a wound that was inflicted by the police. He was shot in the back, and then suffered physically for this, and throughout his life, and throughout his struggle. I mean, to me, he ultimately sacrificed his life for this cause and was murdered. Another way of being murdered. So anyway, a lot of individuals faced this dilemma of fighting for the ideal or protecting their loved ones and family. And Dennis, like other freedom fighters, his family life suffered from this dilemma, from this choice. You have to choose. Are you willing to do this, or do you seek the security of quiet? So interesting that he's purple right here. Timely purple moments that I will try not to overlook. So another timely purple moment that I'll try not to overlook. So this dilemma, like, for me, was the source of the greatest emotional impact. Even sacrificing one's life wasn't as great as sacrificing, in a sense, one's commitment to one's family for this ideal. And so when I saw this film in 1974, when it first came out, sung beautifully, and hopefully I'll have the opportunity to put part of the soundtrack in another piece that I do, sung beautifully by Roberta Flack. I was a 9 or I guess maybe 10-year-old child in the 4th grade, and I cried. I cried because I got the connection. I got that that John Henry was he was Christ-like figure, willing to sacrifice his life. He was Nat Turner. He was Jesus Christ. He was Spartacus. He was Malcolm X. He was Martin Luther King Jr. And so anyway, I guess in the context that I was in as a 4th grader in a grade school in Oceanside, California, which is near the Marine base, right, Camp Pendleton, and so there was a big military population, and the sort of masculinist culture that goes along with that, and I guess you weren't supposed to cry, at movies, and so when I did cry, I was teased and sort of humiliated, and form of kind of community scapegoating, bullying, or whatever. And because I fell outside the norm, right? Boys didn't do that, and I don't even think any of the young girls that watched the film cried either. So like I was, feminized. This has happened to me before, actually. When I was a film teacher at Barnard College, I showed the Carl Dreyer film, Joan of Arc, with the beautiful performance by the main character who plays Joan. I can't recall her name at this time, but it's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it. But in any case, in one of the scenes in which Joan is expressing her suffering, I remember crying, and watching this film, and then I thought, oh well, that's all right. This is a very moving film. And then when it was over, none of my students were, similarly expressing these emotions, which I thought was funny because, you had to be, I think you had to be a young woman under 25 to even attend Barnard College. So I was at the time probably approaching 40 or around 40 years old, and I was the only one crying at this film. So it hasn't gone away. Let's put it this way. And in any case, it was a difficult experience to deal with, like this sort of like communal humiliation, right? And so for long, and it's those acts, that keep us silent, right? Like had similar experiences in church, where you're not allowed to have these feelings, and you're not allowed to cry, even though the song is about this man hanging from the cross or whatever it is, and so patriarchy has this way of silencing us in multiple ways. So when I met Dennis and I learned these stories, about and again, there's more, to the connection with the hammer than I've even said, because right, this already in this film in 1974, a savvy viewer would recognize that even though that this is a sledgehammer that's used to drive nails for a railroad, right? But sledgehammers were used in the same way in the United States that they were used in South Africa, right? So that there are a lot of work songs and prison songs that have to do with driving hammer or driving nails, and then there's the whole tradition of the train song in the blues and what it means, and freedom train, and the peace train. There's even the pun, John Coltrane, we're working on the rail, and there's a lot there. There's a lot of cultural history, and perhaps one of the reasons that people didn't get why I was crying was perhaps they didn't get it. I don't know. Maybe they didn't get the imagery, or maybe they didn't get all of the connections, or maybe they just didn't really care about civil rights. I don't know, but it had a profound impact on me. And so then later when I learned these stories about Dennis and Mandela, then it reminded me of my own personal experience, and it reminded me of how I was silenced, from feeling, like you're not allowed to care, right? Well, if you don't care, like, how is this stuff going to happen, right? So, and that's when I sort of brought these things together and began re-examining the possibilities of working with a hammer. So the first piece is presenting these different monuments to John Henry, holding his hammer, and then I imaginatively have him take this hammer and destroy all of these racist monuments with the hammer, which is of course against the law, and so he'll end up, in jail presumably, or not. But he's willing to make that sacrifice, right? Because he was willing to sacrifice himself for this cause, as the legend tells us, and so that's part of the representation, though it may be hidden from the representation. He doesn't take the hammer and do his deeds and run. He accepts his fate, and that's what's so moving. And here's I can't remember her name, Pollyann again, maybe, or whatever her name is, and here's her here's our child. Maybe I think it's a girl, and she realizes that she has to give this man up because of his commitment, and I still think that's moving, and it still makes me cry. So part of, I guess, the work with the hammer is remembering, those tears, and also not being ashamed of it, being willing to say, yeah, I cried because it's moving, and because I get it, right? And still kind of an amazing movie. Focus on the purple just to go out.